You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. We missed you last week. I'm your host, Niki Sims. With me is Andrew Jackson.
Strength and nutrition coach with Barbell Logic, consummate professional.
Professional, yes.
27 years later.
Well, I was just apologizing to Andrew for my moments of distraction while my grocery shopper is doing my grocery shopping for me.
This is some serious first world problems, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that.
I'm just like, they're texting me. And we were just laughing about so I eat bok choy once or twice a day in my breakfast and dinner. And that's always a hit or miss when someone else is doing your grocery shopping for you.
Not the most well-known vegetable.
Yeah. In fact, I just got your shopper would like to replace bok choy with baby bok choy. I was like, well, that's fine. That's better than spinach, which is what it's been before.
It's at least in the ballpark. I think bok choy is interesting because, we've experimented with different leafy greens and dark greens. There was a kale phase. You always try to do a little spinach. And I think bok choy is like the perfect combination of celery, kale, and spinach. So it's more hearty than spinach, which just disintegrates when you put it under any heat whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like you put an entire box of spinach into your thing, and then like 2 seconds later, it's just gone. Like where I thought I put
like a quarter cup of slimy greens.
I think exactly. I think I just put like 2 pounds of green things. I'm like, this is going to be the healthiest looking meal ever. And then it just looks like something you scraped off the bottom of your shoe like 20 seconds later.
Ew.
Kale, on the other hand, feels like you're eating pipe cleaners.
Yeah, it would take so long to get it to a texture that was actually enjoyable. That's why we had to eliminate it from the breakfast.
Celery, it's just a bit much.
It tastes like celery.
I like it in a stew. You can it'll hold up to that kind of cooking.
Yeah.
But then there's bok choy.
Well, part of what makes it tasty is that it probably absorbs a lot of the delicious.
It's hearty enough to stick around and hold some form without, totally cleaning you out and requiring like 10 minutes of chewing. And then you've got the leafy end, and then you got the stalk end, whereas that's where I bring in the celery, but it's not as hardcore as the celery. It's like this nice balance.
Kind of a neutral flavor. Yeah. It increases the volume of food, which is really nice I think it just adds to it. It's wonderful. So delicious.
I wouldn't just eat. I don't think I'd put bok choy on a sandwich or a salad, but stir fries. That's why it's probably popular in stir fries. It's like perfect for like the breakfast hash or the stir fry.
Delicious. Can't wait for breakfast every day. It's the best.
But we didn't even get to the complaint part.
Oh yeah. The message that we always get is like, they're out of bok choy. And we're just sitting there like, they're not out of bok choy. There is not a bok choy shortage. No one knows what it looks like. And you've just revealed that you don't know what it looks like.
I've never gone to a store and seen like an empty bok choy section. I'm like, they're totally out of the bok choy.
It's like a sign, bok choy shortage, our apologies.
Maybe it's in the back. You get that message every once in a while, right?
Yeah. Oh, we just found some in the back.
Like, no, there is no back section of bok choy.
Right. Back bok.
There is just one bok choy section in every store. I don't even think they have, how there's like the organic section and then the regular. Bok choy has no organic section. It's just,
they're like, people who eat bok choy, they don't care about this organic thing.
No. They're also thinking nobody knows about bok choy. We're just putting it out here for like 5 people.
As like a transition between spinach and cabbage.
Exactly. Oh boy.
Yep.
Also, they don't miss us. We were here last week.
Yes,
Digital
in a different time.
Recordings of our former selves.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I actually did listen to it a little bit this morning.
Which I don't even know what episode it was. What episode was it?
Walking.
I was walking.
Walk more.
Oh, good.
And I was
Love it.
celebrating that I had just walked for an average of 10,000 steps a day for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that was like 3 years ago, but
Wow. Yeah.
nobody knows.
You're still doing it. Like, it's still important to you. Like, you check it daily.
Mhm.
You try to get yourself out of a deficit. Like, it's still very much ingrained to you to get 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah. I'm kind of coasting right now this week or these last few days because we were averaging 17,000 steps a day.
Yeah. So Andrew and I went to Budapest and we walked so much. Like, we did exactly one of the things that I love doing on vacation, which is walking and eating.
Well, you know what's amazing about how much we walked was I was thinking being back from there that we walked to many places that here in Bellingham, I do not consider walkable in terms of distance.
No, not enjoyable at all.
But we would just be like, oh yeah, there's this place like 5 miles away. How about we just walk?
Yeah. We'll just see what happens along the way.
If something's more than like 3 blocks from here, there's no way in hell I'm walking.
Nope.
Unless I want to torture my daughter and be like, let's go walk to ice cream or frozen yogurt or something.
Yeah, that's true. It is a different experience.
But like Fred Meyer, the grocery store is like way less than a mile away, or Whole Foods or whatever, like the little shopping area. I would never walk to that place. In full disclosure, I walked there once.
But then you would have to walk back with all your groceries too, which, yeah.
How many miles did we walk with those beer steins?
That was like a quarter mile.
Anyways, I'm coasting, but yes, still aiming for 10,000 steps a day on average. And the streak continues from April of 2021. And so I'm on 3.5 years.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Feels good. And it's become a habit. I would say that
definitely a habit.
helps just sort of, as I talked about in that episode, it seems to stabilize and ground my activity level and something I can just kind of fall back on that I know will get me back to where I want to be from a body composition perspective is where I notice it the most. I tend not to end up in these, whoops, I'm 15 pounds heavier than I wanted to be
Yeah.
kind of position. I used to have every winter or every once in a while, if I wasn't like dialed in on the diet, I'd just be like, oops, I just hit 260.
And do you think it's all because of the calories that it burns? I don't think 10,000 steps is going to burn 15 pounds.
No,
I think there's more to it than that.
I think it's just, what's like with habits in general, I feel anchored to just a certain collection of behaviors that result in less gained weight or faster weight loss. And like on the other side of Budapest, I weighed in at 256 or 257, which is pushing the upper end of that range. But I think it was mostly just bloat in the water because I'm less than or right around a week later, I'm at 248.
Holy moly. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just because walking regularly gets me into the mindset of, it's sort of like that train everyday mindset I've talked about before, where my day-to-day life habits have a baseline effect on my choices that put me back really quickly into that sort of 240 to 250 range that I feel best at, from kind of like triangulating all the different, both performance in the gym, body composition, just energy levels, sleep. And walking is just, I think, one of those that seems to help me. I mean, it's a conscious choice to prioritize that, but I don't have to make the decision that I'm going to walk today. It's just part of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that walking is one of probably the big three, or maybe the big four that I would say have become baseline habits that I know that's where I want to get back to. If I go travel for a week or go to a conference or whatever, I know I'm going to be outside the pocket of those habits. But even within those travel circumstances, I think I'm like degrees off of the baseline habit. But walking, my normal quote unquote food choices, consistent barbell training 3-4 times a week or some sort of weight training, and then sleep.
Yeah.
I think those 4 kind of habits that I get back to, going to bed and getting up relatively same time, and then making decisions like when I stop drinking caffeine so that I do sleep better.
Yeah.
I would say those habits are the ones that have created what I call my baseline lifestyle. We talk about inertia getting back into training, but I think there's also like the inertia of having that baseline that my body just gravitates towards where, or at least I've built habits that create inertia around where I want my body to be,
Yeah.
which is kind of in that 240, 250 range.
Totally. We've talked about we've done a lot of work to know what it takes to feel good. And those are the habits that you're talking about that are built around that.
Right.
And so coming back from a trip or even preparing for a trip, that's when we'll sometimes get messages from clients who are just like, oh, I've got a trip coming up in 2 months. I want to prepare for it. Or I just got back from this trip. I need to lose 10 pounds.
Right.
Or they come back from a trip and they don't get back to training. It makes the transition period and the preparation period, I think, so much easier and more doable.
It's just less stressful too.
Yeah, and less stressful. Yeah, you were reading this James Clear quote, which I think we should read about how... I'll just let you read it. Yes, read that quote.
Habits do not restrict freedom. They create it. In fact, the people who don't have their habits handled are often the ones with the least amount of freedom. He goes on to list a bunch of examples, financial, health, etc. But this actually goes back to, I think, Kantian idea, like Immanuel Kant philosophy idea that freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want whenever you want. Having constraints is actually more liberating.
Yeah.
And having habits is essentially creating constraints you don't have to pay attention to, in my opinion. You could argue that requiring or including walking 45 minutes to an hour a day or training is a limitation or a constraint, or it's like restricting my freedom because I quote unquote have to go do those things. But I'm not having to think about making that choice. It's part of my baseline. It's what I do. And then by having that as a habit, when my laundry room and kitchen flood over the weekend.
That was a really fun welcome home present.
It was wake up in the morning. I was just like,
it's your Saturday morning, right?
Sunday morning. Wake up. I'm just like making coffee in the dark, and Clara comes out, and I didn't even notice. I was standing in a puddle of water because I had these slippers on, and they were just starting to get wet enough that I think there was a part of my brain that's like, why are my feet wet? And then Clara's like, Dad, why is there water all over the floor? I was like, oh no, I thought the dishwasher leaked.
Oh.
Start mopping it up. We carry towels into the laundry room. There's another puddle in the laundry room. So I'm like, oh no, what, did the water heater break? And then it was so much water that it flooded the laundry room. And then the dishwasher is right on the other side of the water heater wall. So I thought, oh man, that's what happened. But turns out it actually rained so much the night before. And then I went to find out later that landlord had not cleaned the gutters and the drainage wasn't working. And surprisingly, in a daylight basement, there was residue line on the window, the daylight basement window, 7 inches above the bottom of the window. So there was 7 inches of standing water pushing up against the window.
Oh my God.
Fortunately closed, just pouring into the laundry room. So that was a whole fiasco, but turned my Sunday into a day of cleaning gutters and haggling with the landlord and getting a bunch of dehumidifiers and all this kind of stuff, trying to avoid potential mold situation, but didn't derail my habits or my training. It was that sense of freedom that is in that James Clear habit, is because there's so little mental load on my day, on my, just decision making, my schedule, the way I've structured my work day, my personal life. It's just part of the flow. So having that huge kind of disturbance in my schedule, my plans, my energy level had no impact. I just kept training.
You just did what you always do at that time.
And you've had a arguably much worse scenario.
I don't know. Yeah, well, we got back from Budapest, and poor Henry, my dog, has had lung cancer or lung disease for probably like a year. And right when we were on our way to the airport out of the country, he took a turn, and thankfully he held on until we got back. But when I got back, I realized it was time for him to go. So arranged for a service to come and put Henry down. And so said goodbye to Henry on Friday. And like, even now, still just like emotionally like devastated from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people have experienced this in any way, like any way that you experience loss and grief. It takes a toll.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, I actually went to the gym on the same day. Like, it was the thing that I knew that I wanted to train, and I didn't have to, but I didn't have to worry about what I was going to do there. I didn't feel the pressure of needing to perform. It was an opportunity actually to get myself out of the house, which I really, really needed right then, and to be in the sun. And it was an opportunity to just like be on autopilot. I literally took it one step at a time. I was like, I'm going to go upstairs. Step 1. Going to put my workout clothes on. Step 2. Okay, I'm going to sit here for a minute. Okay, now I'm going to put my shoes on. Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to walk out the door. And I even was like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it to the gym. I'm just going to walk in the direction of the gym and see what happens when I get there. And it was just so nice to be able to do literally one step at a time. And I ended up doing everything that was on the program, which was a very flexible program for that day. But the ability to almost relax into the one step at a time and know that those steps were going to bring me somewhere where it was right for me to be at that time.
Did Jillian adjust the program for that day?
Yeah, and it was a coming back from, overseas trip with jet lag. She was like, you're going to need a bit of a reset on this day. And so it was a lower stress day, but it was just perfect anyway, because she knows what it's like to come back and be jet lagged. So it was jet lag, lots of grief, lots of emotional moments. And it was funny. I was just walking around at the gym, and I'm like one of those like real big criers. I'm not really a subtle crier. So my face and eyes were so red. It was really funny, but I was just like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm doing my reps and I'm glad to be here. And it's just what I needed right then.
I think that highlights an important aspect of something like training or nutrition or sleep, whatever the key variables are or walking. The difference between it being a habit and maybe what I think a lot of people, myself included in the past, have expected my training or any of these things to be.
Oh, like a performance or a job.
Yeah, whether it was on the nutrition side that I needed to be on a diet, quote unquote. I needed to be on the wagon. Either I was like on or off the wagon for fill in the blank.
Yes.
My training, my nutrition, walk, my conditioning, quote unquote, my steps, or the sleep.
Sleep. Yeah.
Need to be getting up and going to bed at exactly this perfect time. Like, there's this, I think, tendency for rules to be put in place to define whether you're doing something right or wrong, or, it provides some sort of validation that you're doing the thing or a thing.
And it almost has to be so much of a rule that it feels like a sacrifice every time you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat of the dark side potentially of getting excited about voluntary hardship, like thinking that it needs to be hard every single time and more of a performance. But I think the hallmark of a habit is that there's some truth beneath it, the essence of the thing that you're trying to do, that can sustain almost like our core tenets. The behavior or the action might have a wide range of applying that core tenet or that truth, that core kernel of truth, like walking. I could go for a 10-minute walk. I could go for a 5-minute walk. Those are all habits, including walking in my day. It doesn't have to be a 30 or 45-minute hike in the mountains with my boots on and
I don't have to go
rucking.
Yeah.
It could just be that I'm going to go outside and walk once or twice a day.
Yeah.
And yes, 10,000 steps is my target metric, but sometimes I hit 7,000. Sometimes I hit 8,000, and that's okay. I'm rolling with the punches. That's what I have today. In your case, you have a habit of training, and you know that you're going to go to the gym, or you're going to take one step at a time to get to the gym, and you're going to train. And on that day, it was some percentage off of what you would normally do or what you would ideally like to do, but that doesn't take away from the habit.
Yeah. And I didn't feel the guilt or the weight of knowing that I missed another training day.
Right.
Because I didn't. And, I didn't have to, no one's making me. It would have been totally understandable to not go. I'm not saying everybody has to do this. It just, the thing I loved about it, and the thing I really loved about getting back onto my nutrition after traveling, was just like, I know exactly what I have to do because I've done this 1,000 times. And now I just get to do it. And I know I'm going to feel good. Like, I could just rely on getting to feel good without having to be like, oh no, I need to go into this much of a deficit and I need to readjust everything by this much percentage and should probably do a whole new training thing. And you know what? That's too much. I'm just going to take everything off for the next week. It wasn't like that at all.
I need to take a week to recover from the trip.
Right.
So then I can be mentally prepared to invest all this energy into all these different things and get back, quote unquote, on the wagon instead of like falling back into the baseline.
Yeah.
It's like, it's actually, I think I've talked about this before, but like path of least resistance for me is actually getting onto the baseline.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to make any new decisions.
Yes.
Like, I buy the same groceries. I set the same alarm clock.
Listen to that phrase. I don't have to make any new decisions.
Yeah.
I think that's such a big takeaway. And that's what relieves you of the anxiety.
Yep.
You just do what you know works.
Right.
Just do that one step and then you do the next one.
Gets a little bit trickier in the abnormal situations, but I still think the habit mentality applies where, we were hotel gym. Sometimes we found one gym to go train at that had some barbells. We're kind of out of our normal groove. But I think that just becomes more of a tactical flexibility in the moment.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we've been doing this long enough and have enough experience. We know how to like swap out exercises to train the same muscle groups. We understand, that you don't have to be always lifting a certain amount of weight. Maybe you do more reps, maybe you add more exercises, but make it fun. But the fact that we still fit it into the schedule while not optimal also made it falling back into those habits a lot easier.
Totally. Yeah. And then the other big payoff that we get, in addition to just the relief of being able to not make new decisions, is that we have a bunch of muscle on our body. And so when you want to, like I was saying, prepare for a trip or recover from a trip, you already have so much useful tissue that drives your like ability to burn fat really quickly. So when you want to like slim down for a trip, it's way easier than if you had gone into it without having a bunch of muscle. And it's still hard work, but I think it's more effective. I'll put it that way. And then when you're bouncing back from a trip, you were 10-ish pounds of fluff, which is okay. And I think because you have all this muscle, your body's like, yum, yum, yum. Give me those extra calories. Get rid of this bloat.
Yes. I mean, especially once I was back to heavy lifting again.
Yes. Yeah. The muscle is a tangible outcome of the habits that we've created, which I think makes everything that we want to do more doable.
Totally. How was your muscle soreness coming back to relatively heavy weights? Was it different?
Today it's the worst from my leg workout that I did on Tuesday. It's like ridiculous. It's really funny.
More so than normal?
No.
Or does that workout always make you sore?
That leg press day usually gets me pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's the biggest difference I noticed is still, even though I did some training, body's still like, I can tell I'm a little bit out of the normal routine.
yeah.
But I got back up to triples at, 175 kilos or 172.5 kilos. It's a pretty solid day to jump at high bar.
And dare I say, it almost seemed like right before we left, you might have needed a deload.
Yeah. My coach had just, shout out to Nick Hammer, shifted me from, we were doing, I don't really think we were on like week 26 of sort of a variant of the Texas method. And he had just suggested that, we were hitting a bit of a wall. Let's maybe try a little bit more of an HLM, which I would technically argue Texas method is a bit of an HLM.
I agree.
But anyways, it's for his programming structure. What he calls it is a little bit of a different approach. It's just that it spreads it out over 2 weeks instead of 1 week. But anyways, I lucked out that the travel week coincidentally was a deload. And this is sort of the first week back up. So yes, the timing did work out well. But I've actually noticed post-COVID and really as online coaching and home gyms have become so normal now that travel and or work trips or whatever have historically been probably for most people, they're just built in deload weeks
Yes.
that during COVID we didn't have. And we had to like relearn how to program for
That's interesting.
deload weeks. It was a little bit more like programming for a competitive athlete who's like geared their whole life around constantly making progress.
You actually plan for a deload.
Yeah. Whereas I think with normal folks, you kind of forget that sometimes they do actually need a break because life would give them breaks.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it was good timing. Just in time to ramp back up for 2 weeks and then take another deload.
A small one. This one's much smaller.
That's just more like a long weekend.
Andrew's birthday is coming up, so we're going to go celebrate that on the beach in a pink house. That's another great thing is, you're just saying it now that you're pushing 50.
Ouch.
You're going to be turning 46.
Yep.
Which I think is great. And you're going into it very well muscled, which I think is the best way to go into it.
Muscled and marbled.
Yes. Lead a well-marbled life. I think I said that years ago.
For anybody listening out there who's like on the fence or thinking, I have to do something drastic to get back on the wagon, or let's wait till after the holidays. And there might be people that are hemming and hawing about
waiting for the right time.
In fact, I was just talking with somebody yesterday who was like, call me in January because I just got so much going on. I don't have time to quote unquote overhaul my whole training program. And I would say, make the call now for 2 reasons. One, we have a free experience call and Niki will help you determine maybe it isn't the right time. Maybe you do have so much going on. And 2, I would say though, that for most people, when we're talking about the habit of training, it's not about making a huge drastic overhaul.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out how to make the next minimum effective dose incremental step towards including or incorporating, whether it's the strength and or the nutrition components that we're talking about in your day-to-day life. Not trying to destroy you with the hardest program ever that you can't recover.
You're like, well, you got to start going to the gym now at 3 a.m. That's your new life now.
6 days a week or even 3 days a week for 2 hours every time. Maybe it's working with a coach to help you figure out what you have, the equipment, the time, the energy, and the capacity to do today, and start working on the habit so that when the time does become more flexible or available, it's in your day now. You're not having to figure that part out of it. You can just do more work. So I would say now's the time.
Love it. I agree.
Do it.
It'll pay off later.
And get some bok choy.
Get some bok choy. Baby bok choy, also acceptable. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to talk to Niki Berman, she's fantastic. Go to barbelllogic.com/experience and set up a call with her, or you might end up on the schedule with me or with Chrissy. Anyway, you're lucky, whichever one you end up with. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.